Welcome to Soul Thrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode on the Soul Thrive podcast. Christina here, and I'm with my lovely guest co-host, Eleni.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I want to start off in regards to this podcast episode. This one's going to be a good one. So we're going to just start off. We're going to get into it. What if the entities people fear are not random? What if angels, demons, spirit guides, even what we call attachments, are actually reflections of frequency, trauma, and free will? What if the real divide isn't between good and evil, but between fear and healing? Today, we're talking about entities from archangels to demons across belief systems, not from a Hollywood lens, not from paranoia, but from psychology, theology, and energetic law. Because the real question is, do entities exist? It's, what are you actually resonating with? That's the actual question that I want people to ask themselves with, because it's not so much if entities exist, it's more or less, what are you resonating with?
So this is huge for me.
Yeah.
Saying.
Why is it so huge for you?
Been the longest question that I've had. So I guess because I was very in tune, sensitive to energies around me, not necessarily that I could see all the time. It was such a big fear attached to what was it and what is it, and is it dangerous, and is it.
Considering we're both Greek Orthodox and like the way we were raised, I totally get that as well. I had a little bit more freedom in my childhood and my experiences to kind of explore different ways of thinking and operating. And I think that was more my dad's perspective. My mom was a little bit more still in the traditional aspect of things.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more open-minded around like, hey, view things from a different light, be a critical thinker, think outside of the box. It's not so black and white. You have the opportunity to kind of examine what you think good and evil actually is. And so that was a huge perspective for me, especially because I am a psychic medium. I do work with, other thought forms and entities or whatever you want to call them, but it's not what people think it is. And, there was a stage where I had to build my confidence around that as well, because when you are part of certain systems and communities, their thinking is so black and white. I mean, I just want you to think about a person in general, even just trying to make a decision and having the conflict between what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. And our brains were just wired that way in general, just because of our systems, school systems, the way we were raised, our religious belief systems, all these factors.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if it became, I don't know if it worsened over time. And I think being sensitive to all of this stuff to no fault of their own, when I did say something or reach out for help, nobody really had any answers that weren't just kind of avoidant.
Yeah.
Or would just instill more fear about it.
Yeah.
Right? So I felt like, but I felt this, like, I don't ever remember not feeling it, but it was the belief system. It was the answers that were given to me didn't really help it.
Of course not, right? Because they didn't have the context, nor did they want to talk about it, because there's a level of fear around it. You have to comprehend the fear
Stop thinking about it.
It's like, okay, well, I saw something, so how could I stop thinking about it when it was literally in my room? Like, it's like, and I get too, when we were looking at children, because we can look at the perspective from a child's point of view, that the veil between here and there is super thin.
Yes.
And so it is very common for children to see deceased loved ones or an angel or a guide or have some form of an experience show up that may be good or bad, depending on, again, the environment, the way that it's being perceived and the experience overall. So I wanted to kind of dive into, I know we're going to look at it from different belief systems and like how they frame entities, which is really important. I think we want to go through like, let's like the historical perspective and the theological perspective to a degree so that we have a little bit of context around how people's belief systems do operate and work with their structure of thought, right? Because like it is a way of thinking, it is a way of being, and it is a way of operating in your reality due to that.
Okay, so let's go through some of the.
I love it. You brought your glasses this time. I love it.
Let's see how it goes. Okay, so the different belief systems, some of the most common.
Yeah.
If we look at Christianity, the core structure around entities. So there's angels who are messengers of God, archangels, archangels like Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Raphael, demons that are fallen angels,
Yeah.
and Satan as the adversary
Yeah.
to God.
Yeah.
In traditional Christianity, entities are external beings. They act within God's hierarchy. Humans have free will. Temptation exists, but choice determines outcome.
Absolutely. Again, it goes into the concepts of like good or bad, right or wrong, or like what's good and evil. There's always this like concept of duality that's coming into even the Christianity way of operating. It's like, well, if you're good, these are the ways that you operate with the entities. But if you're bad, these are the ways that you operate with these entities, which is kind of like not how it's supposed to be structured. But I comprehend the duality aspect of things.
Right. And the theological divide is, are demons influencing you, or are your choices aligning with temptation? And that I would say was the built up fear. I'm like, I think I'm doing something wrong if these guys are coming at me.
Yeah. 100%. There is free will that like this is again the concept of where like free will enters. This is how it gets into the conversation because even I've talked to priests before and they've had the conversation that you have choice and you have free will. But again, it's so structured in the belief systems of what's good or bad. And we already have our preconceived notions about how we perceive ourselves as human beings. And then we're adding these belief systems and the influences that they have. And that is structuring also our sense of self, which is really interesting, especially as we progress forward. We're going to talk more about the psychological aspects of things as well.
Okay, so in Islam, Islam introduces angels who are created from light, jinn created from smokeless fire,
Shaitan, yeah.
Shaitan,
Yeah. Which
satanic influence.
The satanic influence.
I should have brushed up on my Arabic.
A little bit. That's okay.
Okay, so the key distinction, jinn have free will, angels do not.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. So the jinn has free will and then angels do not. Interesting.
Because I guess the belief that angels are just directed by God.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
See, and learning something new here.
I'm assuming I'm not an expert.
That's okay.
Okay, so already the narrative shifts. Not all unseen beings are evil. Some are morally neutral. Some operate through influence, not possession.
So there's this belief pattern isn't so much about just choice. It's about the influence around your experiences. What is influencing you, driving you, and then how are you executing a choice? So there is a divide there as well. It's like influence versus choice. So what is like a guiding force in your light that's influencing you to make your decisions versus like just choosing something just because based on these aspects?
Okay. So in Hinduism and Buddhism, the traditions speak of devas, higher beings, asuras, lower beings, karma as a governing law. The important difference, there is less emphasis on eternal evil.
Right.
More emphasis on karmic alignment and consciousness level.
Yes.
Entities here are often tied to consciousness states, cycles of karma, spiritual development.
Yeah, and it says like lower states of consciousness attract lower realms, which is true because we do live in a world of different perspectives and different realms of energy, and karma does play a significant role. Should you have that belief system? Because again, if you're a Christian, you're not going to have this belief system. So you're not necessarily operating with the understanding of how karma plays a significant role with the laws of consciousness and the state of consciousness awareness around what you're trying to develop spiritually. So again, this is like all about vibrational theory. So when we're talking about that. And then we've got the psychological lens, which is what was coined by Carl Jung, which is a lot to do with shadow parts. So we look at the shadow projections, the archetypes, the collective unconsciousness. Our demons sometimes shadow parts of ourselves. Our angels higher archetypal wisdom, which totally, when even the work that I do as a shadow worker, this is the frame point that I operate with because it's just like, I mean, I take a little bit of from every perspective because it's important to, but it really is not dismissing the spiritual reality. It's about recognizing symbolic layers from that psychological lens. Okay, so when we're talking about like free will versus religious structure, I think it's really important to kind of dive into this perspective a little bit because I want people to understand most religions agree on these three fundamental things. The first one is there is an unseen influence. The second is humans have free will. And the third is choice determines your trajectory. And
Yes.
all of them govern those three laws,
Yes.
no matter what. So at the end of the day, religious doctrine often externalizes entities. So like there's a spiritual psychology that talks about the internalizing of frequency. The questions here that I want individuals, like use your critical thought processes. What's important is like the divide really looks like as are entities attacking you or are you resonating with a certain amount of frequency? And that's what people don't necessarily think about because they're always like, there's an external thing attacking me. Something externally is happening.
Yes.
And yes, is there an element based on those belief systems that can align with that frequency? Absolutely. Just even thinking about the belief system of the evil eye,
Yes.
right? Like there's something outside of me. Someone is sending something to me. Something is attacking me. Something is, and it's real because we do believe in it based on the vibrational frequency that we operate in.
Yeah.
I wonder if we shifted that belief system, what we would align with then, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about spiritual warfare? Because like that is again to
Yeah.
the attack, right? Like
That's the biggest questions. It's like, how much of it? And is there an element that has to exist for whatever reason, an unhealed part of you, a fear part of you that has to line up with that? Like on the simplest level, yeah, on the stuff that we deal with day to day, I feel like it's kind of simple. That is something in you. It's that whole mirroring, right? Something that you need to see. So even if it's just not having that same level of fear or anger, that is that frequency, you paying attention to it. Maybe this is where my mother was right a little bit. It's not avoidance. It's like you're constantly looking in the direction that you don't need to look anymore you're inviting it.
yeah, I think sometimes there is this otherworldly experience going on in different realms based on what our belief systems are, what we want to change within ourselves or what we want to change within humanity, what we want to change in the collective overall. And there is like a internal battle within us. There's an internal conflict within us when we're looking at those aspects. And which goes into the mirrored concept where it's like, okay, well, then if there's an internal battle within me and I'm already having this spiritual crisis and I'm already going through seeing all these things that I want to change in humanity and the experiences that are happening, then I'm mirroring that externally in my reality as well. But then there is this concept too, because I do believe in entities and thought forms and archangels and all of that. And it depends on the spectrum of how that person's operating. I also believe that there is like a powerful protective force on the other realm that's also coming in with love and regulation and the opportunity to change what we are holding on to and what we're creating as far as what our limitations and our fears and our inability to heal trauma. And this is why my work is such a huge emphasis on that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I first started off, I didn't know what I was going to do with this energy, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I knew that I didn't just want to be a medium. I knew I didn't just want to be someone who read cards. Like that wasn't first of all, it wasn't in my life. I did it, but it wasn't my joy. My joy was sitting across from someone and registering what was happening to them and being able to provide a solution, a regulation, an opportunity to heal an aspect of themselves so that the collective shifts, not just them shifting, because whatever's going on internally, whatever battle's going on internally, we're always going outside of ourselves to look for the validation.
Yes.
And I wanted people to say, okay, you could take your belief systems, but you have to be a critical thinker. You have to be able to look outside of the box sometimes, because this may not be what is serving you anymore.
Right.
And the questions you're asking or the pain and the suffering that you're feeling is a layer of something that you need to work through and have awareness over. And so I think when we fall into the heavy religious aspect of things, even that could be a real detriment to ourselves, just like falling really into the spiritual aspects of things can be a huge detriment to us as well.
Yeah.
Both, again, have those polarities. Mm-hmm. But when I'm looking at like spiritual warfare and I'm looking at somebody, I'm always like, there's this internal struggle, this internal crisis that's happening because you went through all your adaptations from your childhood and your experiences. You developed some of those belief systems are important that you still have to, traditions that you still have to carry forward. Like I still love a lot of the traditions that were instilled in me from when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I still love prayer. And I still love, like I've talked about this before, Byzantine chants. Mm-hmm. I love them so much. Why? Because they hold a specific frequency. And sometimes when I just want that added support or I want to clear my energy or whatever that may be, it's in my alignment to use that. Just like someone's going to use sound healing. Someone's going to use hitting a bell of some sort. I don't know, whatever that frequency or that tone is going to be for you to realign you. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way of looking at it. I just think that we need to get better at questioning what is it that we're creating. If we have free will, then we are creators. Mm-hmm. So then the controversy then kicks in where it's like, I believe that I'm one with God. I don't think I'm separate from God.
Right.
And the idea, like those 3 laws where they're like, there's something outside of you that is influencing you. It's like, yes, but that is also me.
Yes.
That is not a separate part of me. It is so intertwined because then it's like, well, I'm here having this experience in this reality. If I can influence someone in a positive way to align with a better version of themselves, to help them, then I am of service to that energy that is connected to me.
Yes.
When I see the divide, when I'm seeing the polarity, when I'm seeing someone say outside of, and then they're caught in the suffering and the pain and the cyclical patterns of nothing really happening for them. And they're like, well, something outside of me is going to make it happen. First of all, then there's no accountability. You are actually doing a bigger disservice to humanity by wiping your hands clean of it and being like, well, this was God's will, or this was God's plan, or this is God's journey, or it's like, so you have no hand in that. And this is where I'm looking at it from the psychological standpoint too, where it's like, so your thoughts all day, every day can influence the energy in your environment. Correct?
Yes.
If we would take the experiment as far as a plant goes,
mm-hmm.
right? If you show it love and you give it intention and you're showing up with that frequency, it thrives. If I'm walking around depressed and sad and not paying attention and I'm not watering that plant and whatever, it dies. We are doing the exact same thing when it comes to our relationships with one another, not just within our system, not just within our communities, but on a collective level. So I can't sit across from someone who's living in fear and welcoming in the idea that something is going to show up and change them or do it for them. It's never going to happen. You're always in a place of limitation. And that, I will say, then you have to examine your actual experiences, your limitation with finances, your limitation with the ability to create outcomes, your limitation with being creative, your limitation around your energy, your vitality, your health. You will see that play a significant role. Why? Because the systems that have been created around Christianity or Islam or your belief systems, they're limited to a degree. They have the ability to awaken questioning within you. And they also have the ability to limit the way you're operating and limit the way you're thinking. Just like spirituality. I have had the same way of operating with that, where I've seen spiritual communities bypass so much because it's all like love and light and peace. And like, I'll give you an example. I had someone yesterday who was suffering in front of me, and they were like, so I'm going through this and I'm going through that, and I feel this and I want to change this. And I said, you're allowed to be angry. Like, you need to express your anger. Like, it's important for you to be able to express this emotion. And like, they knew it, but they weren't allowed because the way they were raised and the way that they operated based on their belief systems was, you cannot have that type of emotion. It's evil.
Well, so then, and I think it's pretty clear, it became pretty clear to me, even through my own journey with this specific topic, even the question of whether or not, is it something about me or is it something external? And like you said, we were raised Christian. The fundamental opening line is know thyself. And so
Oh my
what
God, yes.
ended up happening
Oh my God,
for
yes,
me,
that one right there, yes.
I needed, what I can look back on now is seeing that what I needed was a sense of safety. And when I went through the journey of kind of understanding what was going on with me, and I think that's kind of when we met up, I got to the point where it was just like, I don't think that I can do this. There's so much going on that I don't have the answers to myself. I need to find someone. I put the question out there, and it was like a little bit over time. It just kind of connected through even other people. It was fated, I guess.
Fated.
As I started healing, looking at my trauma, and like timing, divine timing too, because I wasn't even aware of a lot of this trauma until I had my first child. I think I was like 27 years old before I was just like, wait a second, what is happening? Like memories coming up and things. Anyway, when I started to work on and heal my shadows, it didn't fix everything. It didn't heal everything, but now I could separate what was my trauma, what was just my own fear of my own shadows,
Right.
and what maybe feel more like external. And what does that mean? And what are those messages? So that was the first part of it, of like, I feel like this whole like shadow work and everything, it kind of can bring you to, it gave me enough sense of safety with myself to be able to explore further and open myself up and even develop my gifts and accept my gifts. And the other thing that you mentioned too, with going back to the things that you still hold that work for you, for like prayer or sound healing or chanting. It was I think it was a book Thich Nhat Hanh and
Yeah, I've read it. Yep.
Thomas Merton did together about, and I think, and he said that it was like he was emphasizing to like hold on to your traditions, like don't throw out your traditions, because a lot of these entities, and I think we're gonna go and touch in on them in the conversation. A lot of these entities will come to you in a way that you recognize.
Yep.
And it's almost like having archetypes for things, right? Like in
Exactly.
one image,
Exactly.
I can represent for you, and you have an understanding that if I tried to list and explain, you wouldn't have, and it would take too long. So it's almost like path of least resistance, that I'm going to show it to you in a way that you're going to understand the message fastest, which is why I think, too, within all of these different religions or belief systems, everyone experiences miracles. Like they will sit and
Yes.
justify, but I saw the angel. But then you'll have another one that said, well, but I saw a light, or like this saint came to me. It's because
Yep.
it's the message, it's the energy, it's the frequency, and in a way that you're going to get it.
Yes. Well, yeah, because everybody sees it from their own point of perspective and their own lens. Like
Yeah.
even when I'm reading someone or I'm sitting across from someone and I'm giving them information, you're only understanding it from your place of active listening.
Yes.
And when there's a lot of trauma and there's a lot of limitation, there is no capacity to be able to sit across from someone and respectfully have a conversation, because most people operate from the level of crisis and urgency, and they're operating with unsafety. And so Ivana and I have touched this on many topics, and we just did, remember, the 8-week workshop on safety as well. And I put in a huge emphasis of the importance of the embodiment of safety. Know thyself, right? You need to be safe enough within yourself, and you need to be safe enough so that others can come to you and be understood. There shouldn't be judgment. There shouldn't be divide. There should be understanding. And I think, I mean, if you look at it from a collective level, guys, what are some of our wars based on, right? It's sad to say, but those are the fundamental things. And if we could, and I know in a perfect world, in a utopia, it would be like we would all harmoniously just understand one another and just be able to connect and be able to see these perspectives. I think there's got to be a point, and this is just from my own perspective, where we stop looking at the occult and religion as good and evil. Okay? This is going to segue into the entity aspect of things. All right? Because in religion, whether it's broken off in different ways of operating, everyone has their own belief system. Everyone has their own idea of what they assume is right, just like the occult does. Okay? It has a structure. It has its hierarchies. It has its way of operating, and it has its levels, just like religion does. Okay? Both have their dualities. Not everyone operates in those dualities. So if we're looking at the occult and we're looking at someone who does readings and says they're psychic and they're doing mediumship and they're talking to deceased loved ones, and then religion is saying that is not your deceased loved one, that is a demon, you are associating with a demon, says who? You are looking at it from your belief system. That doesn't mean, and again, I've been doing this work for quite some time now, that doesn't mean that I'm not talking to an entity. I could very well be talking to an entity. And how is this not serving the person who's in front of me? It's serving the person who's in front of me based on their point of perspective, based on their belief system as well, based on what their need is, because it's not coming, they're not getting it from religion anymore. They can't. They've been in suffering for far too long. And they're looking for answers. They're looking for something more, a way to shift their frequency. And it really is like, I think people need to comprehend too. You can get a really amazing priest and he's going to make a difference. The community is going to change based on how the priest operates. You can get a really shitty priest who's just preaching and dividing and creating more suffering, more fear, all of those elements with a conviction of some sort. And that has nothing to do with what the actual belief system and traditions were all about.
100%.
Then you could have someone in the occult practicing black magic, doing really nasty things and invoking lower energies of fear. 100%. Totally doable. But then you can also have someone doing something the complete opposite of that and not even remotely be in the vibrational state of that experience. We cannot, as human beings, sit here and say that we're not products of energy. It's impossible to look at that and not say we are not products of energy. And to say to yourself that you're never going to meet something that's going to scare you is impossible. And it's, again, running away from the idea of like, well, this is a person who's a psychic. Like, okay, and I'm not reading you right now. I'm not invading your space. I'm not trying to hurt you in any which way. But there are other psychics that may do that. No different than a priest. So again, I wished, let's not go into the Catholic way of operating and the things that have happened there with children and the experiences that were created. And yet we don't talk about that. Our hands are clean of it, right? Why? That to me feels like a cult. There is something culty going on there. It doesn't feel right. But yet our eyes are closed to whatever is going on. And yet over here, some people may just be like doing their sound healing, trying to work with their chakras. First of all, that's an Indian culture. Why is that bad? Why does that mean that there's something? Yoga's bad? Why is yoga bad? Like, these are the questions I want people to ask themselves. Why is there such a divide in the way that we're operating, and we're always blaming the occult being the problem, but we're not looking at the problem that's causing the wars? I'm a bit confused. I'm confused about that. And that's just my brain going, what are we not willing to see here as far as the shadow part goes? Is it the lack of accountability part?
I think it's lack of accountability. I think it's fear at the end of the day.
Fear.
It's being not looking into things. It's like not having the permission to just even look at something outside of whatever it is that you're being told. To see that as dangerous is a little bit.
Very much so.
Discernment, I think, is the most important thing, right? Like just when you were saying like this psychic medium might be great and this one might be the priest who is actually quite intuitive and uses his structure and uses the word of the Bible and can help people, compared to one that is in his own fear and his own trauma and dictating and, you know, like, just like in those two situations, just like you're discerning from every single person that you meet, whether this is a safe person for me to be with or not a safe person to be with, so is the spiritual realm, right? Yeah. Like, you need to have a level of discernment. You need to
absolutely,
right? You need to know what feels good, and this is part of the reason we go back to healing and knowing yourself
and being safe within yourself,
being safe within yourself, so you know what that feels like. So then you can have a more accurate choice in saying this person doesn't feel right. And then when you go on to looking at other belief systems, if yoga is like, okay, why you're asking, why is that? Why could that be good for me? Why couldn't that be? And you educate yourself, and then you have an educated decision holistically that says, no, that's not for me, or this is for me.
I also think too, we have forgotten what the divine feminine represents when we're looking at these two extremes. And I understand how we have been, as women, just thrown to the side and not necessarily worshipped the way that we should be worshipped and taken care of the way we should be taken care of. And I think religion has really taken women's voice and power away. That's not to say that, I know from a Christianity perspective, Mother Mary is still really loved and she's of service and all those beautiful things. But I get why women go towards spirituality more. And I get why women are more open to intuition. And I get why women want their sovereignty back. They want power. They want to be able to heal these wounds and come out of it. I mean, it shouldn't feel like a witch hunt all the time. That's where I'm looking at it from my perspective sometimes. Like I'm like sitting across from someone who's got these perspectives and belief systems and I want to respect them, but the respect isn't given in return. There is a layer of fear around my power and my ability to help and my ability to serve from a completely different perspective. And sometimes it does feel like a witch trial. It does feel like I'm not allowed to fully express my intuitive parts or my feminine parts or execute my own convictions in this world and be seen in a specific light. And that is really hard for women. Women really want to believe in God and they really want to believe in something more. And then there's a disservice in other women who are coming from a place of like highly Christian belief systems and they're disowning their own intuition, their own ways of operating because they think motherhood is just the only way of operating. And like, no, there's so many facets to women. I chose not to have kids. I went through the process. I did my thing. I had my experience. And now I'm at a point where like, I'm good with it. If it never happens, it never happens. But I know when I'm working with everyone's inner child, I'm like a mother to them. Like it feels like such a mothering, loving energy that I can offer as far as support goes. And that means I want to be connected to the divine masculine, which is God. And I want to be connected and execute that service from that capacity and that fluidity and that ability. I cannot live in confinements or structures that make me silent. And we need to have voice. And unfortunately, when we're looking at these systems and these belief systems and the fear that we're operating and the lack of embodying of safety, we're then shutting off our ability to communicate what matters and support and the intuition that is innate in all of us. Because often I get asked that question, like, how can I embody more of my intuition? And I'm like, what are you willing to face? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to let go as far as your belief systems go? Because all of those things play a significant role of how much you're going to lean into the actuality of intuition, the full capacity of that.
But it kind of goes into the beginning of, because if I let that go, what if that's bad? And then I will
And we fall back into that cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it.
And then I'm evil. And then I attract evil because I've abandoned the right belief.
Mm-hmm. Which could be tied to your relationship dynamic with your father. If we're looking at it from a psychological standpoint, like those belief systems, did your father protect you? Did you feel protected? Were you seen? Were you allowed to have an opinion? Were you allowed to communicate? Were you allowed to shine? Were you allowed to step into your authority, your convictions, your confidence? What was his way of operating in the world? How did he execute certain things? Because he's fundamentally the individual in the home that represents that part of safety for the family structure, right? And if that didn't exist, then, and your mom wasn't allowed to fully express her divine feminine the way she needed to, and there was a different accountability and expectation of her, then it makes sense for you to feel the way you do and have your limitations operating in a specific way. So things that I want you guys to also pay attention to is the bridge in your experience, right? So I want you to understand that when someone is living in chronic fear, or operating in shame or disassociate or deeply unhealed, the nervous system is dysregulated, right? So that lowers your frequency and you will innately feel unsafe. So trauma, no matter what, if you are operating with any level of trauma, and this is again something in the spiritual community that I see as well, if we're not dealing with trauma, you are actually at a low frequency vibration. Even if you're trying with love and light and all those things, you have to deal with shadow parts. You can't operate if you don't, because then you're going to fall into what I've seen happen quite frequently. As you're trying to elevate your frequency, you're going to have to meet other parts of yourself that are in fear-based limitations based on structures and systems from your own childhood. And if you are not willing to see that or understand that, you're going to go right back to religion. You're going to go right back to, oh no, this wasn't right. I made a mistake. which goes into like that whole concept again.
Whatever originally kept you supposed to keep you safe.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, now I can't, this is the only way that I know what my safety is.
Yeah.
And now if I go into this perspective and I'm seeing other layers of what this looks like, the shadow parts of myself, and it's super scary and there's trauma sitting there, then yeah, it makes sense for you to run back to what you know is comfortable and your idea and perceptions of safety. From a grounded perspective, from that standpoint, if you're really grounded, fear alters your perception. You need to comprehend that. So obviously, if you're hypervigilant, it creates this external way of rationalizing your unsafety, and you're hyper focused on certain parts, and you have pattern recognition that kick in. And then shame and other emotions fragment your identity. I need you to comprehend that. So religion, what does religion do sometimes? Shames quite a fair amount. There's a lot of shaming that comes with that. And so it fragments your identity. So if you feel a specific way or you want to operate in a specific way in this world, but if you've got these systems and belief systems telling you that you can't, it's going to fragment who you are and how you want to be authentically you. So people in deep trauma may feel like they're being watched. There's a lot of paranoia. Feel attacked. And also, above everything else, feel super spiritually unsafe. They're not going to, they may dabble a little bit, but they're going to run back right back to whatever that is. Whether it's psychological, spiritual, or both, trauma absolutely affects when someone perceives and resonates, how they perceive and resonate with it. Okay? I wanted to get into soul contracts because this one's a big one as well. My God, so many things that we want to talk about. This is like the fun part of all of it. Okay, so in some spiritual frameworks, entities are not random. I need you guys to understand that, okay? Very important. Walk with me on this. They are karmic mirrors. We talked about mirroring a little bit earlier. So for instance, if a relationship feels parasitic, okay? An experience that forces some form of empowerment. So I call in, something is acting like a catalyst to make a change in my life. All right. Dark night of the soul emphasizes the awakening aspects of yourself. So you're going to go through that crisis. You're going to go through that need to question your whole entire world and reality in order for you to even align with the better outcomes of your purpose and who you want to become. You cannot contradict that. You need to have an understanding of all of that. So we will welcome entities in to serve a purpose. We all do this, whether you're in the religious aspect of things or you're in the cult aspect of things. Okay. Religion may call in Jesus, may call in Mother Mary, may call in the archangels, right? From a spiritual perspective, you may call in the archangels, you may call in a deity, you may call in a saint, you may call in something else there too. You are welcoming entities in your experience because you want to learn more. You want to embody a different way of operating, a different way of that frequency to help teach you to align with a outcome, an alignment or purpose. Here's the thing too. Some of them are soul contracts, and the soul contract aspect of things, which is really important. It's not because it's a punishment, not because it really is a catalyst for your healing. So often when I hear someone who hasn't dealt with their trauma and they're in feelings of unsafety, they're attracting entities that are lower frequency to create a false sense of safety. So there may be and I've seen this because I'm an energy healer and I can read people's auras and energy. And sometimes someone will come in with a dark entity, and you could be highly religious, by the way. Walk in with a dark, I'm not walking in with a dark entity. You're walking in with a dark entity, right? And it's so tied to the amount of abuse that they went through in their childhood from the hands of their parents or the caregivers, right? So if there was like sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, mental health disorders, all those aspects. And these lower entities are coming in, these energies, these frequencies as protectors. They're not coming in to harm you. You've asked them to come in from a subconscious level as a contract to help you navigate some form of what you think normalcy is supposed to be. Now, you'll see this because You may fall into addictive behavior patterns. I often find when there's a lot of trauma. So they fall into addictive behavior patterns. They fall into lower belief systems because it keeps them in the level of fear and it keeps them stuck from empowerment, from change, from the ability to heal, from the accountabilities that they need to take. They're in the victim mentality of aspects of things. I've also seen it on the other spectrum too in spirituality, where people have done ayahuascas and like shamanic processes where they've done one too many of them and they've like split their fragmentation even more because they didn't do the embodiment work. Again, know thyself to create the safety, the embodiment aspect of things, and register that they're carrying entities from that perspective. You've allowed them in. And some of them, as a psychic medium that I've been doing this for over 15 to 20 years now, some of them will manipulate your thought patterns. They will. They're going to give you a false sense of confidence or a false sense of self or a false sense of operating because you are not discerning for you. You are not thinking for you. You are not critically looking at experiences from a different perspective. You're not willing to say, hey, let me challenge whatever this conflict is or the external conflict outside of me. Instead, this other aspect of whatever I welcomed in as a contract, because it is a contract, it's working for you to a degree, but it can really change your personality. Now, some of you are going to go into, but what about possession? Isn't that an interesting conversation? Mm-hmm. What about possession? What happens when we go to the deepest, darkest, satanic way of operating where we're letting Satan in and we're letting all these like super negative things? So God created Satan for a reason, right? He is a fallen angel. We talk about fallen angels. They were just angels that questioned the authority or the belief system, but also that was a story that was told to us our entire life. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if I can believe that. I don't know if that's the way that it operates. Possession based on the religious ways of operating, they've been documented. I'm not going to sit here and say that there hasn't been lower entities that have housed bodies. But we would have to get into the conversation of like, what was that person's mental state? Yeah. And even still then, before an exorcism is performed, they go into all the mental health aspects. They go into checking and making sure this person isn't having a psychosis of some sort. Because people can have psychosis in both elements, by the way, whether the occult or whether in the religious aspect of things. Mm-hmm. And it is scary to think that is a possibility, but it is based on frequency. It is based on your belief systems. And that is true. Just like working with archangels and talking to deceased loved ones from that point of frequency is also true. Just like it all varies on where you are vibrationally. It isn't so black and white. Mm-hmm. And I wish people understood that because it's all energy. What's your perception on the whole possession thing?
Like I said, I think it's like you said, we don't know for sure. No one does. As far as I know, no one's come in and said, okay, I've heard a lot of people say, this is all it is. And this is all it is. And I said, okay, from the perspective of like, I don't know everything. And I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I think we don't know more than we do know. And that goes for everybody. That's what I believe. But I think, like you were talking about with ayahuasca, like with substances that alter your own state, mm-hmm. even if you are, and it goes back to shadow work and trauma work, even if you are operating pretty well, you feel like in your life, right? We're like, oh, but this person wasn't an addict, or this person didn't have depression, or this mm-hmm. person wasn't, they don't seem to be like a low frequency person.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean they're just not avoiders. So when you're taking in, like when you're drinking alcohol, when you're anything that alters your state, I don't know, smoking weed.
Right.
You're now accessing without your permission almost, mm-hmm. right? You're not doing it on purpose, accessing your subconscious.
Yeah.
And that's what I know to really be true. Because people lie and vibration does not.
Yes.
And my only question with the concept does go back to some kind of soul contracts. So I think most people who seem possessed were probably in such avoidance that it had to take that level or inviting lower vibrational frequencies in because they're so avoidant, right?
It's also generational stuff, by the way.
Generational, ancestral,
that also plays a significant role with that.
That you seem like, oh, but I was fine, and then I'm just I don't believe that to be true. I think that there's things there that need to be shifted, and it's a wake-up call. From a soul perspective, though, I'm curious to know your perspective on how much do you think, and maybe like we were talking about our last conversation with saints, and you're connected to your soul contracts and your purposes and what you're supposed to fulfill. Do you think that sometimes it's maybe, we'll go back to like, I guess I want to say test, because the Christian faith tests, right? Is it almost an initiation?
It's not even a question. It is.
Yeah.
It's not even a question. Anytime. So depending on the work that you do, right? Again, people's ways of thinking and the way their brains are structured and the belief systems and their traumas and their lessons, all of that is predetermined to a degree. Okay. So you came in here with this idea or this way that your soul was going to express itself. And then you came in with the elements, like coming in as an Orthodox Christian was important for me. Me being Greek was important for me. Like all these factors define who I am. And it really is linked to so much ancestral stuff, just even from a cultural perspective of goddess energy, God's energies, the belief systems prior to even orthodoxy, the Christ consciousness. Like there's so many facets of why it was important for me to come in to this perspective, be baptized, even to have controversies around the occult, because I've also been so in there where I've had people perform black magic on me before and meet some really dark people in my journey as well. And that could have pulled me away from what the main purpose of the soul expression needed to have. So our soul expressions, consciousness, because and maybe we can get into like somewhat of past lives or whatever, but I'm going to just stick in the frame of mind of your own soul contract, the way that you're coming in, the consciousness of your energy, the expression of your soul. It is also the extension of that ancestral line. And so you come into this perspective to achieve the importance of your soul's expression. And some of that's going to be amazing and it's going to feel so good. And then you're just, and other times we talked about this even with the saints, there is no world expression or process where you're not going through some form of an initiation. You have to go through something in order for you to align with the better version of yourself. Because then how do you know yourself? Mm-hmm. Like how would you know what your resiliency is? How would you know what your capabilities are? How would you know how your responsibilities are? How would you know how you're affecting people? Like the version I was 10 years ago, the version I was 2 years ago. I'm like, I wish I can go back and be like, you didn't have to take the responsibility for that, or you didn't have to do this over here. You didn't have to, help this person achieve these successes or whatever that may look like. Great. I went through it. Those were my lessons. Those were my initiations. Some were good, some were bad. Both mattered into who I am right now. And that's going to take me into my next becoming, right? And that's important. And I have to be very mindful that we're always forever evolving. And I do find that, unfortunately, both aspects, whether that's the occult or whether that's religion, it isn't at times. And even that doesn't define where we're going and where we're heading and the expression of what our soul's process is and the expression of our soul's initiation. Do I think sometimes when I'm working with people, and I have done this with certain people, I will be like, okay, you need to call in Archangel Michael. I need you to call in Archangel Michael. And they're like, why? I'm like, because the trauma associated with your father and the lack of protection, the lack of belief systems you actually don't have. Like you actually don't even, you weren't raised either or. There was like literally nothing here. There's no defining you at any capacity. So then you're going to have a hard time with boundaries and safety and sense of self and purpose and all of that. So calling in Archangel Michael is going to help teach your energy what it feels like to embody safety, protection, have someone support you in a different way. Calling in Archangel Raphael if there's healing that needs to get done, or calling in a saint of some sort. Like I love working with Mother Mary, especially when I'm working with people's inner child. They need a mother figure. Sometimes I'll welcome them into their safe space. Calling in the Christ consciousness, activating, not all of them. I have been doing activations of the Christ consciousness in people in the last little while. It's really, really important. All these things are part of your soul contracts. And it's not going to look the same for everybody. And it's not going to look like so black and white. And I think this is the one reason I wanted to do even just a series with you. And we talked about this, is like the ability to get people to critically think. I just want you, I'm not saying that the way I view it is the right way. I'm just saying I want you to take the information and figure it out for yourself too. I think that's important. I'm giving you my perspective. Eleni's giving you her perspective. We have some commonalities here. You may not.
Yeah.
And it's important for you to look at that. But I don't want you to go like, it's wrong, because that goes right back into good and evil again.
Right.
I want people to be able to be like, well, can't be wrong. What if it is this way? And what if this trauma is the reason why I'm acting the way I am acting, and why I'm leaning into these belief systems the way that I am, so with so much conviction.
Yeah.
And how is this keeping me small?
And I think that you have to question, if you do feel fear, which I did, there's,
oh my God, yes. When I first met you.
oh my God, I was the biggest chicken. I was like, I had insomnia because of this for my whole childhood and my early adult life. But I think that anything else, like any other experience, if something is scaring you, there is not going to be a point where you're not going to have to be brave. You're going to have to face your fears, one way or the other. And like Christina was saying, we have commonalities, but the way that she experiences things, and I think, to go back, I think experience teaches. Words kind of can give you a guidance, but you won't really embody anything until you've experienced it. And that's how it becomes true for you and it will keep evolving, and maybe it will change. But I think that there's a level of bravery that comes with the openness to stay curious, to keep asking questions. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, for example, in my experience, also Greek Orthodox, being raised in the Greek Orthodox Church, I had a strong understanding of who I was told Jesus was, what God and Jesus were. I really did not have a connection to archangels. And I really didn't have a strong connection to like Mother Mary. I knew who Mother Mary was.
Yeah.
We didn't say the prayers like I think in the Catholic faith where they really, my kids ended up going to Catholic school. So I kind of learned that prayer through my kids. So like I didn't have that strong connection. And it was only when I really started doing the healing work, doing the shadow work, inner child work, and then deepening my meditations that I kind of built my safe space included the protection that I called in. And it was very interesting because it wasn't even actually through a meditation. It was just through a random person, like a friend of a friend who had kind of heard, I don't know, I think my friend was like talking about me and like, yeah, she's really like nervous about like at night, she get, just relaying my experiences to this other person who happened to be Catholic and said, oh my God, you need to give her this prayer, and sent me over the Archangel Michael prayer.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really even like this person that much, so I didn't put a lot of stock on it. But that night I said the prayer, and not with even
like conviction or just
conviction. I'm like, okay, whatever. I kind of added it to my thing. And honestly, I had the best, calmest night sleep, like rested in that up until that point, my whole life. And I'm like, there's something to this. And I get, it's like calling in that frequency of protection, of safety. And then the second thing that had happened with Mother Mary through my meditation, I like when I say I wasn't even thinking about it, she like appeared to me in my meditation as an anchor.
Anchors, absolutely. I love that you're saying that because anchors are a really big one. We should do a podcast episode on just what anchors are because I think that would be really beneficial for people to comprehend the importance of that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about that. Well, we're going to just put a little pin in that because I like that. I like that a lot. I also want people, I wanted to just kind of get into the shadow part a little bit again, but that one is so important because I want you to think about from your childhood experiences how maybe you'd run to your mom and she wouldn't provide that.
Well, that's what it is.
And
Like
protection.
over the
So
years,
calling
like
in
that,
Mother Mary then created that mother figure.
the mother, and even that protection that I didn't feel like I had from anybody because I felt like they didn't understand it. And so it was just, and to the degree that I said earlier about not throwing out your traditions, I believe I saw it in the forms that I saw it because it was the fastest way that I would understand what it meant.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had a concept of angels and therefore that's why it was so protection. It was that frequency,
Right.
that energy that was offering me that, regardless if I called it Archangel Michael or regardless if I gave it another name because I was raised with a different set of beliefs.
Right.
It was those energies of that mother, that grounding, protective mother, divine feminine energy.
Yes.
And the masculine protectant,
Which falls
which
into
is what I was
you
missing.
being able to trust in your intuition, expressing the divine feminine energy, all those other elements. I also want to talk about what could keep you in a low frequency state and what would it feel like to be in a higher frequency state. So low frequency, we talked about some of these themes: fear, shame, victim mentality, addiction, rage, and resentment. Okay. Higher frequency is integrity, healing, accountability, compassion, boundaries, and self-awareness. But I really think the importance is when you're in the fear or the shame, the victim mentality, addiction, rage, and resentment, that's trauma. So shadow work, super key to work through these aspects so you can comprehend what your frequency is actually vibrating with and how you are connecting and making changes in your reality based on doing shadow work here, because then you'll move up the vibrational scale with those aspects. So when people are actually in the vibration of healing, you're going to feel less chaotic. You're going to feel more supported. You're going to attract mentors and you're going to sense guidance, which can come in through your meditation, come in through the process of whatever it is that you're choosing to connect with, whether those entities are lower because you've got a soul contract with them, or whether you are willing to finally move from that into a different vibrational stance, which is really important. So working with the archangels is great. I will recommend, if you guys want to connect with your archangels, super important. I love Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. All four of these archangels are highly important to work with, especially if you're starting off in a journey, or even if you're just kind of stuck right now or whatever that may look like. So working with them can bring in protection, better communication, healing, strength, courage, bravery, all the elements that you may not know necessarily how to face in your reality because there's this internal conflict or internal struggle that's going on because you don't know where to fit in, whether that's religion or whether that's the occult or whatever that looks like. You can create your own and form your own way of operating with all of this. When you're connecting with them, what happens psychologically on a psychological level is that you do align with protection. You do start to align with being more courageous and having more embodiment of healing, and you're increasing your ability to have accountability, right? You're willing to see your part in things and register how you are affecting your environment or your relationships or your experiences. And that's what entities are teaching us, whether they're from one perspective or the other. They're teaching us accountability at the end of the day, empowerment at the end of the day, to be more courageous, to look at things from a different perspective. And they're also teaching others around them as well. So if you're witnessing someone who's in a really bad state and they're in their addictions, or they have lower entities, or there's mental health issues that are going on, they're teaching people outside of themselves how to take better care of themselves too, and support and so on and so forth. So there's a purpose for it, guys. There is a purpose at the end of the day. And It's really important for people to comprehend that. I did want to talk a little bit, just we're going to end with the last little part, because I think it's important for people to kind of get into this karmic aspect of things that I wanted to talk a little bit about. So karma is not necessarily a punishment. It really is just cause and effect. Right. And I think people, when we're looking at religious or the occult, everyone's like, oh, this person wronged me and they're going to get what they did to me. And it's like, we wish that upon people sometimes, especially when they've really done hurtful, painful things. But really, it's just the cause and effect of what will happen to them and the lessons that they need to learn. So Christianity believes that you reap with what you sow. Okay. That's their belief system. So I can see why some people are like, well, you did the wrong thing, the bad thing, the evil thing, something evil is going to happen to you too. Again, it's not quite like that. It's just cause and effect, right? Buddhism's believe like intent shapes future experience. Okay. Islam's our actions are recorded. So like there's a whole other, so I wonder what that would mean for the afterlife, or like what that it also means for just your experiences overall. So actions are recorded. So yeah.
Kind of like the Akashic record.
Yeah, maybe. Ooh. Yeah. Spiritual psychology, unresolved trauma repeats patterns, which is evident. So karma is both energetic and behavioral. Entities fall in many systems, but they do not override your free will, by the way. You are working with them. All right. They amplify what you align with. That's all it is. It's just a belief system, what you're aligning with. It amps it up in a negative way or in a positive way. So what I probably will end with is maybe the real spiritual maturity isn't obsessing over entities. It's asking, what am I resonating with? What am I feeding? What part of me is still in fear? And what part of me is ready to rise? Because the unseen realm may not be something that attacks you. It may be something that responds to you. And I think we'll end with that. Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys, for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great one. Bye.